Hey, what up, Nerd Squad? Thanks for stopping back in this week. I got another no bullshit assessment for you. Today's no bullshit assessment is going to be on the movie slash documentary, if you want to call it that, called More Than Miyagi. If you're not familiar with this is the story of Pat Morita, the actor who portrayed Mr. Miyagi in the Karate Kid movies. Super cool. If you do not want to know the details of this because you're planning on watching it, spoilers ahead. I'm not going to go super into detail. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown on some of the stuff I found fascinating and stuff that I didn't know, which was a lot as far as this gentleman's life went. So if you haven't seen it yet and you're waiting to see it before you dive into this stuff, make sure you come back after you see it so you can get my no bullshit assessment. If you want my right out the gate opinion, I loved it. I thought it was great. I would highly suggest you watch it if you're a fan. So check it out. You can get it on iTunes, Amazon. Those were the two main ones that I found. So check it out. It's worth it. This was really cool. The story goes into great detail from the time that Pat Morita was a child all the way up to him trying to get into show business and then kind of his tragic end and stuff. I thought it was great. I didn't know a lot of the stuff about this gentleman and his life and everything. So it was really cool to get the beyond the Miyagi, which kind of was the point of the whole thing, because I thought he was fantastic as Mr. Miyagi. But this was really cool. This had a lot of people in it that talked about him, and obviously it had a lot of the cast members from the Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio and William Zabka and stuff. But it also had a lot of stuff, like I said, that I didn't know. I didn't know when he was in TV and stuff back in the day, because obviously this was before my time. He was on Happy Days. He was Arnold on Happy Days. So Henry Winkler and some of the other characters were in there, and a lot of people he did movies and comedy and stuff with. Had a lot of really nice things to say about the man. And it's cool because it kind of is the story being told from the perspective of Mr. Miyagi's wife. Well, his third wife, technically, the one that he was married to when he passed away. And they just give some really good insight into everything, and a lot of stuff I didn't know, and just kind of how challenging his childhood was when he was young. I think they said it was around when he was like 2 years old or something. He ended up sick. He had some kind of illness, and it affected like his spine and his legs or something like that. And he actually had to be laid down prone for long periods of time. He was in a wheelchair. They thought he wasn't going to be able to walk and do stuff like that. And just really hard stuff for a young kid to go through, especially back then when there wasn't as good a medical quality or even the availability to some of the best medical stuff at the time that he was young. And to be able to persevere through it and kind of come out ahead of this thing, it's really cool. And it's a definitely a true testament to the man. He ends up working for his father at their restaurant, kind of just decides he doesn't want to do it and he wants to go into show business and stuff like that. So he makes himself a deal, and I'll get to that in a second because I did skip one thing. When he was younger, with how hard things were for him growing up even, this was during World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor. So, of course, the American society at that time was completely anti-Japanese, and they had rounded everybody up. There was internment camps and stuff like that, and Pat Morita and his family were placed in one. So that's definitely something that they talk about, a lot of this trauma that he had as a kid, from being sick and kind of abandoned. I think it was kind of like abandoned by his mom. He ended up being raised by, I think, his aunt. But then being in these internment camps and all this stuff. And when that was finally over and his parents or his dad was able to open up a restaurant, he went and worked for his dad and just kind of was falling, in line with that and what they were supposed to do. But he didn't like it. And I didn't realize he had stated in this thing that he didn't even start pursuing show business till he was 30, which I think is great, and he said he gave himself a 5-year plan, which I think is pretty cool. He said, in 5 years, if I can't make it onto, the number one rated talk show at night, and I can't remember, I think it was Ed Sullivan. He gave himself 5 years. If I can make it onto that show in 5 years, then I'm on the right path and I'm doing the right thing. And so he gave himself the option to try it out and said, if I don't try it out, I'm always going to regret it. And I get in there, he said he made it to like the second rated show in his 4th year or whatever, but he just kept going with it. And it's kind of funny that he made his way and kind of paved his way into comedy as a comedian, talking about, the Japanese culture in a sense that he kind of became the token Japanese that you would see, and expect and talked a certain way. And the jokes were a certain, type of joke. And he very much played that role. And the funny thing is, when you hear him talk, he doesn't even, like, if you weren't looking at his face, you absolutely, in my opinion, probably wouldn't even have a clue that he had some, Asian ancestry to him, because he just sounded so fluently, American. He was here his whole life and all that. So he definitely had to play the role. And the documentary does a really good job at showing movies from back then and how Asians and Japanese and stuff were stereotypically played by white actors and actresses and what they would call yellow face, I guess, and just really gross representations of them. And I think it's unfortunate the way that it was done. And, it just kind of is the way things went for the time. And that was what was acceptable then. But, yeah, he definitely had to play the part. He had to play that stereotypical role for a while. And that's kind of what he became known for, within acting and stuff. But he was able to get a lot of roles, and he, was even about to get his own spinoffs after Happy Days. And I didn't realize that Happy Days was kind of circling the drain until they kind of pulled him in. And it sounds like he kind of revived, I think maybe like the third or fourth season or something like that, which really put Happy Days kind of back on the map. And it was largely to do with his character. But he just kept going, and he just loved it and kept doing the movies, even if they were pretty stereotypical and stuff like that, as far as the roles go for Asians and stuff. But he definitely loved it, and he took on a lot of roles, and obviously it led to him being Mr. Miyagi. And kind of a funny thing was, they had kind of said going into the auditioning for Mr. Miyagi, like, we don't want this guy. We don't want him. I don't want him. I don't want the guy from Happy Days. We can't cast him as this role. I think was the director, producer, and they did some kind of like screen tests and stuff with him, and the producer guy was like, who's that? That's my Miyagi. I want that guy. And the other guy told him, that's the one you already said you didn't want. And so I think they screen tested him like 5 separate times for it. And finally they gave him the role. And obviously, as it's become history and a cult favorite movie, it opened up the doors to a lot of things back then. It really brought, some different styles of martial arts over to the United States. And it really gave us a different look at, martial arts and karate and hand-to-hand combat and stuff like that. Because back then, you think in the 80s too, you're seeing all the big muscly guys. You had, Schwarzenegger and Stallone and stuff doing these huge movies where they're larger than life kind of stuff, which is still cool stuff. I like that stuff too. But this movie had a real story to it, and it was really, really cool. And I think it was ahead of its time. It talked about largely, I mean, obviously, the story, it's about, being bullied, and that there's more to karate than just doing the moves and fighting and kicking ass and stuff. And some real deep stuff. It kind of let you see the deep side of Miyagi in the movie and stuff like that. So it was just played really, really well. I think Pat Morita was even nominated for an award for his role in it, which I think is fantastic. But once we get beyond Miyagi, he's obviously aging. He's getting a lot older. What it kind of turns into as well is talking about how he was very, very alcoholic, which is unfortunate. They talk a lot about just the traumas that he faced in life, the stuff we talked about, from being kind of abandoned and sick as a kid to the internment camps and stuff like that. But he was very, very alcoholic. I guess he was drunk every day, and he would tell you, nobody would know that he's drunk, because I guess he was just that much of an alcoholic. But as he, age wore on and stuff, he got worse and worse and worse. And it just, it was tearing up his family life. And he was, as they said, non-castable at that point. They couldn't even cast him for roles. He was taking itty-bitty little roles when he could, and just got to the point where it wasn't worth hiring him anymore because he was so severely alcoholic. And so obviously, with age and the disease and stuff, he ends up passing away, and it kind of is the history. I believe it was 2005 that he passed away, but pretty sad and tragic the way that it had to play out and stuff. But everybody's fighting their battles and stuff, and he obviously had a lot on his plate too. But overall, though, the whole entire story, start to finish, it's really, really good. I think it's only about an hour and a half long. Like I said in the beginning, it's definitely worth checking out. This was a really, really cool look at this man's life, and just how he was outside of the movies, and just how crazy it is to see this stuff on somebody. Think that, like, Mr. Miyagi, the character that we grew up knowing and loving and stuff like that, like, this guy didn't even know any martial arts. Obviously they had stunt doubles and stuff like that, but it's just so funny. And again, I guess that's that could be portrayed as, oh, the stereotypical Asian should know martial arts or whatever. But even for the time back then, like he played the character so well that it's hard to believe that he didn't have a lifetime of the discipline and the training and the knowledge and the wisdom and the, all that stuff. Cause I think he just played the character so well, but it's so funny to see that he didn't. And there was stuff too in there that it was like, he didn't even really fit in with his family. He said his wife, they were at like a family event and everybody was speaking Japanese and he was kind of sitting by himself in the corner, and she had said, why don't you go over there and talk to your family? And he was just like, I don't know what they're saying. Like he didn't understand the language. And, it's kind of tough because you feel like he kind of probably didn't feel like he fit in on either side. He wasn't really accepted as anything more than the stereotypical Japanese guy from the time his career started up until, the time he passed away. But to him, I mean, he was, as American as it came, and he didn't speak Japanese. He wasn't a martial artist. He just was, he was a comedian, and that's what he wanted to do. And that's what he loved. And, it's unfortunate the way it ended, but it's definitely cool. Like I said, to see this and see all the people that he worked with talk about him and their experiences with him. And, he's got a star on the Walk of Fame, which is awesome. So just a really cool story. I definitely think you should check it out if you like the character of Miyagi, or realistically, even if you're not super familiar with it, just to see a really cool kind of background look at somebody who lived that life during those times. It's really cool. There's a lot of home movies that they play in it, and you get to see a lot more of him and who he is as a real person, not just the roles that he portrayed on screen. So I liked it. I would suggest it. So check it out. It's definitely worth the hour and a half that it is. But yeah, I don't think I have anything bad to say about it, really. Like I said, it was kind of tragic the way it ended, but that's kind of the way some of these stories tend to go. But I still think it's worth checking out. So go watch it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you guys liked it, or if it ruined the character for you. I know some people can watch this stuff and when they see stuff like that, that's kind of sad or negative, or, because he was such an alcoholic, that ruins it for him. That didn't for me. I still enjoyed the character, but let me know what you guys think. Leave some comments down below. Hit me up on Instagram if you want. Let me know. Sector 7 Podcast on Instagram. But other than that, it's kind of where we'll leave it for today. I'll get back with some more no bullshit assessments as we move forward. If you guys have anything you want me to go over, shoot me a message. I'd be happy to dive into whatever. But till then, stay safe, stay healthy, be good to each other, and we'll see you in the next one. See ya.